Something just happened that could shake up the WNBA forever. A group of NBA stars was asked a simple question. If they were starting a WNBA franchise, who would be their first pick? And the overwhelming answer, Caitlin Clark. Not A'ja Wilson, not Breanna Stewart, but the rookie who hasn't even played a WNBA game yet. This sent shockwaves through the league, and let's just say A'ja Wilson is not happy about it. Is this just about basketball, or is something bigger at play? Let's break it all down. So, NBA players were asked to respond to a question about the WNBA over All-Star Weekend. First of all, the fact that NBA players are even talking about the WNBA is a positive thing. The fact that, that's being brought up in questioning with the NBA, in no other years at All-Star Weekend would you have seen WNBA NBA players being consistently asked questions by the WNBA. So the WNBA has never seen anything like Caitlin Clark. Even before stepping foot on a professional court, she has completely taken over the conversation, not just in women's basketball, but in sports as a whole. Everyone has an opinion on her, fans, analysts, even NBA players. And recently, those opinions sparked a firestorm that left A'ja Wilson absolutely furious. During NBA All-Star Weekend, the league's rising stars were asked a simple question. If you could start a WNBA franchise today, who would be your first pick? Now, this kind of question doesn't just get asked randomly. In past years, no one at an NBA event would have been discussing the WNBA like this. But times have changed, and Caitlin Clark is the reason why. One by one, players gave their answers, and the overwhelming response was Caitlin Clark. Not A'ja Wilson, not Breanna Stewart, not any of the other established WNBA superstars who have been dominating for years. It was Clark, a college player, someone who hasn't even been drafted yet. And that was a statement. I would say, considering the ages, you go Caitlin Clark. You've got A'ja who's pushing 30. You've got, she's probably got 5 more years in her. 5 or 6 more elite level years in her. And 4, Nafisa Collier, she's a year younger than A'ja. You've got probably around the same amount of time. And then for Caitlin Clark, you've got at least 10. So you still go for Caitlin Clark in that regard, even though I do think more than likely it's probably safe to say I would put Caitlin as the number 3 best player in the world, especially with how Stewie's been playing the last 18 months. A'ja Wilson has been the face of the WNBA for years. She's a multiple-time MVP, a champion, a dominant force in the league. She's put in the work, proven herself, and earned every bit of respect she gets. But in just a matter of months, Caitlin Clark has done something that no other player has managed to do. She has shifted the focus of the entire WNBA. This wasn't just a case of some players throwing out random answers. They were making a business decision. If you had the chance to build a WNBA franchise from scratch, who would you pick? Would you go with A'ja, who has 5 or 6 elite years left? Or would you go with Caitlin Clark, who could give you a decade or more at the top? The NBA players didn't hesitate. Caitlin Clark's name came up again and again. One player said, she sells out every game, every single game. Another said, she's like Curry, but in the WNBA. And perhaps the most brutal one of all, I'd take A'ja, but Caitlin Clark is going to bring in all the money. That right there, that's why A'ja Wilson is furious, because she knows that as much as this is about basketball, it's also about business. And Caitlin Clark isn't just a great player, she's a brand. This is where things get even more interesting. Over the past few years, the WNBA has been growing, but it hasn't exactly exploded. Players like A'ja Wilson and Breanna Stewart have been dominant, but the league was still struggling to gain mainstream attention. Then, Caitlin Clark arrived, and suddenly everything changed. Her college games are setting viewership records. Her presence is driving ticket sales through the roof. Her impact is so big that even NBA stars are paying attention, which never really happened before. And A'ja Wilson, she sees what's happening and she doesn't like it. For years, she's been told she's the face of the WNBA, but now, before Clark has even been drafted, she's watching that title slip away, and it's not just because Clark is a great player. It's because Clark is marketable in a way that no other WNBA player has been before. Think about it. If you're a WNBA owner and you're looking to expand the league, who do you want to build your team around? The proven veteran with championships under her belt, or the young superstar who has millions of fans ready to buy tickets and merchandise the second she steps into the league? This is why some are saying that if the Las Vegas Aces were offered a straight-up trade, A'ja Wilson for Caitlin Clark, they would take it. That's a bold statement, but is it really that crazy? Caitlin Clark is bringing unprecedented attention to the WNBA. She's making it mainstream in a way that no player before her ever has. And for A'ja Wilson, that has to be incredibly frustrating, because no matter how many MVPs she wins, no matter how dominant she is, she will never have the kind of hype and marketability that Caitlin Clark has. And here's the kicker. A'ja Wilson knows it. That's what makes this whole situation so wild. NBA players weren't trying to be disrespectful. They were just stating facts. Caitlin Clark is the biggest thing to ever happen to women's basketball, and for a league that has struggled for years to break into the mainstream, she is a golden ticket. But what does this mean for A'ja Wilson? She's still one of the best players in the WNBA. She's still a champion. But for the first time in her career, she's being pushed out of the spotlight. And that's something she's not used to. This isn't just a debate about who's the better player, it's about who's the most valuable player. And in the eyes of NBA players, media, and team owners, the answer is becoming clearer by the day. It's Caitlin Clark. That's why A'ja Wilson is mad, because she realizes that no matter how hard she fights, she's losing the battle. And this is only the beginning. The future of the WNBA and the fallout from the NBA's picks, with the NBA players making their thoughts crystal clear, the conversation has now shifted to what this means for the future of the WNBA. Because if Caitlin Clark is already seen as the most valuable player in the league before she's even played a game, how will things look when she actually gets on the court? Right now, the WNBA is on the verge of expansion. There are talks of new teams being added, potentially in major markets like Toronto, Philadelphia, or San Francisco. And if that happens, there's one thing you can bet on. Caitlin Clark will be at the center of it all. Every new franchise will want a superstar to build around. And while A'ja Wilson has proven herself as an MVP, there's a harsh reality here. She has never moved the needle the way Caitlin Clark already has. Think about it. A'ja Wilson's teams have won championships. She's been an MVP, and yet WNBA ticket sales, TV ratings, and sponsorships haven't skyrocketed because of her. But Caitlin Clark, she's already breaking records before even stepping onto a WNBA court. So if you're a new WNBA team looking for a face of the franchise, who do you pick? The established veteran who's been in the league for years? Or the young superstar who's bringing in millions of new fans, selling out arenas, and making headlines every single day? This is the brutal reality that A'ja Wilson and her supporters are facing. The WNBA is a business, and business is about money. And right now, Caitlin Clark is the biggest moneymaker women's basketball has ever seen. Well, this is why NBA stars picked Clark over Wilson. It's why WNBA expansion teams will fight to get Clark on their roster. It's why A'ja Wilson is watching her spot at the top slip away. Because Caitlin Clark isn't just another great player. She's a phenomenon, and as much as A'ja Wilson wants to push back against it, there's nothing she can do to stop it. This is the beginning of a new era in the WNBA. And Caitlin Clark is leading the way. The WNBA has always struggled to break into the mainstream. It has had its stars, its champions, and its die-hard fans, but it never had that one player who could completely change the game. That is, until Caitlin Clark, with NBA players openly stating that they'd build a franchise around her. The message is clear. Clark is the future of the WNBA, and that realization is sending shockwaves through the league, especially for players like A'ja Wilson. For years, Wilson has been considered the face of the WNBA. She's a dominant force, a multiple-time MVP, and a champion. She's worked hard, paid her dues, and built a legacy. But suddenly, none of that seems to matter when compared to the sheer marketability of Caitlin Clark. This is the harsh truth that no one wants to say out loud. Clark is worth more to the WNBA than Aja Wilson ever was. It's not just about skill on the court, it's about the ability to bring in viewers, sell out arenas, and attract sponsorships. Wilson, for all her talent, has never done that at the level Clark already has, and that's why Wilson is furious. She knows that this isn't just about basketball anymore, it's about business. The WNBA is a league that has never turned a profit in its history. It has survived largely because of the NBA support and a small but passionate fan base. But Caitlin Clark has changed that overnight. Her college games shattered viewership records. She has millions of fans, not just in women's basketball, but across all sports. She's making people who have never cared about the WNBA suddenly tune in. And Wilson, she sees the writing on the wall. She sees the way Clark is being positioned as the future of the league. She sees how NBA players are picking Clark over her. She sees how Clark's arrival will shift the power dynamics in the WNBA forever. The business of basketball. It's not just NBA players who have taken notice. WNBA expansion is happening. The league is looking to add new teams, and investors are paying attention. For years, WNBA expansion was a tough sell. There wasn't enough money, enough viewership, or enough marketability to make new teams profitable. Now, because of Caitlin Clark, expansion is becoming a reality. NBA players, analysts, and owners all know this. If they were going to invest in a new WNBA franchise, they would want Caitlin Clark as their star. Because she sells tickets, she boosts TV ratings, she brings in sponsors. And Aja Wilson, she might be a dominant player, but she doesn't do any of that. That's the harsh truth. The WNBA has been desperate for mainstream success, and Caitlin Clark is the key to unlocking that success. And that's why Aja Wilson's frustration is turning into outright anger. She has spent years fighting for respect, pushing for better pay, demanding more attention for the league, and now Caitlin Clark is going to get everything she's ever wanted, but without having to fight for it. Clark is about to walk into the WNBA and immediately be the biggest star the league has ever had. She will get the biggest endorsement deals. She will get the most media coverage. She will get the attention that Wilson and other players have spent their entire careers trying to earn. And Wilson, she'll still be a great player, but she won't be the player, because Caitlin Clark has already taken that title before even playing a single WNBA game. The fallout, what happens next? The question now is, how does the WNBA handle this? Because the reality is, there's going to be tension. Aja Wilson and many other established WNBA stars have been vocal about their frustrations with the media's obsession with Clark. They feel overshadowed, disrespected, and underappreciated. And while they might have valid feelings, it doesn't change the fact that Clark is the best thing to ever happen to the WNBA. She is bringing a level of attention that no one else has ever been able to bring. She is forcing the league to expand. She is forcing NBA players to care about the WNBA. And that means whether Wilson likes it or not, this is Clark's league now. A power shift in the WNBA. For years, the WNBA has been dominated by a core group of veteran stars, Aja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Elena Del Don, and a few others. But Clark represents something entirely different. She isn't just another great player. She is the biggest brand the WNBA has ever seen. And that means the power dynamic is shifting. NBA players made it clear, if they were investing in the WNBA, Clark would be their top pick. WNBA expansion teams are preparing to build their franchises around her. And when the money starts flowing, the WNBA will realize something even bigger. Caitlin Clark is the key to finally making this league profitable. That's what makes this situation so wild. Clark hasn't even entered the league yet, but she has already completely changed the way people think about the WNBA. And for Aja Wilson, That's the worst-case scenario, because she knows that the second Clark steps onto the court, everything will change. The WNBA's marketing, it will revolve around Clark. The biggest games, they will feature Clark. The highest-paid sponsorships, they will go to Clark. And Wilson, she will have to accept the fact that she is no longer the face of the league. That's why she's angry. Because this isn't just about basketball, it's about legacy. And Wilson is realizing in real time that Caitlin Clark is about to take everything she spent her career trying to build. What comes next? The WNBA has two options: embrace the change and build the league around Caitlin Clark. Fight against it and risk missing the biggest opportunity they've ever had. Right now, Clark is the most valuable player in women's basketball. The NBA sees it. The fans see it. The media sees it. And deep down, A'ja Wilson sees it too. That's why this conversation is so intense, because it's not just about who's better, it's about who matters more. And as much as it hurts Wilson to admit it, the answer is clear. Caitlin Clark is the WNBA's future, and nothing, not even A'ja Wilson's anger, can change that. Caitlin Clark's impact on the WNBA is already undeniable, and she hasn't even played a game yet. The fact that NBA players are choosing her over established WNBA stars says everything about where the league is heading. But what do you think? Is Caitlin Clark truly the future of the WNBA?